So how can we subtract vectors? If, let's say, suppose I have vector what? I have vector 1 and what? And let's say vector 2. And therefore I'm asked v minus what? V minus v2, v1 minus v2. So this v1 minus v2 is the same thing as vector v1 plus what? Negative vector v2. It means this second vector, it is a negative vector. So in general, if I said v1, let's say v1 is the same thing as alpha I plus alpha what? Let's say alpha 1I, alpha 2j, and therefore plus what? Yes, let's start for the I and j, and let's say v2 is the same thing as lambda 1I plus lambda 2j. So to subtract, let's say subtract v1 minus v2. To subtract v1 minus v2 is the same thing as alpha 1 minus lambda 1I, and therefore plus what? Plus alpha 2 minus lambda 2 of what? Of j. So this is how you can subtract what? How you can subtract vectors. Also the same thing if v1 is the same thing as alpha 1I plus alpha 2j plus alpha 3 what? K, and v2 is the same thing as what? Is the same thing as, let's say, lambda 1I plus what? Plus lambda 2j plus lambda 3k. So I'm asked to find v1 minus v2. Also this is the same thing as saying v1 minus v2 is the same thing as alpha minus what? Alpha 1 minus lambda 1I plus what? Alpha 2 minus lambda 2j plus what? Plus alpha 3 minus lambda 3 what? K. So this is how you can subtract this vector that has I, j, and what? And k. So let's see some examples. Let's say if vector 1 is the same thing as 3i minus what? Minus 2j plus k, and vector 2 is the same thing as what? Is the same thing as 2 minus 4 minus 3, let's say k, j, and what? And I. And let's say we have v3, so let's say negative I plus 2j, let's say again plus what? Let's say again plus 2k. So let's compute 2v1, let's say minus 3 v2 minus 5 v3. So how can we compute this? We have to first solve this. Find 2v1. So 2v1 is the same thing as 2, and then insert the value of v1, 3i1 minus 2j plus what? Plus k. It's the same thing as 2 times 3, which is 6i, minus 2 times 2, which is 4j. This times this, it will give me what? 2 times 1. It's the same thing as plus 2k. So then I have to first find 3v2. I have to say 3, then I have to insert v2, 2i minus 4j minus 3k is the same thing as 6i minus what? 4 times 3, 12j minus 3 times 3, 3 times 3, which is 9, minus 9 what? 9k. After then I have to find negative 3v2. So the same thing as negative sign multiplied by this 3i minus 12j minus 9k is the same thing. Negative into negative, I'll get negative 6i. Negative times negative, I'll get positive 2 of what? 2 of j. Negative times negative, I have to say plus 9 what? 9k. Again, I have to first find 5b3. 5 into b3. b3 is the same thing as negative I plus what? Plus 2j plus 2k. 5 times 1, which is the same thing as negative 5i plus what? 5 times 2, which is 10. I have to say 10j. 5 times 2 again plus what? 10k. So I have to find negative 5b3, guys. So this is the same thing as saying negative 1 of this, negative 5i plus 10g plus 10k is the same thing as negative negative. It will give me positive 5i1, and therefore I have to say negative times what? Negative 10, I'll get negative 10g. This also I'll have negative 10k. So you must have first done with all this before starting your solution. So you have to take note that my final answers are this for 2b1, and therefore for negative I have this. Also I have this. So I have to take notes. Let's say for I will end with what? 6 minus 6 plus 5, guys. So this will go and it will now become 5i. And then for j is the same thing as negative 4 plus 12 minus what? Minus 10 is the same thing as what? Negative 4 and this 8 and this, it will send, and it will be negative what? Negative 2. So therefore j is the same thing as negative 2. So the next thing is that for k, let's say for k, what I am doing here is that I'm subtracting the values of I, and therefore what? Subtracting the values of j, subtracting the values of k. So k, I have what? I have 2 plus 9 minus 10. This and this is the same thing as 11 minus 10 is the same thing as 1, which is only k. So at the end 2v minus it will now be equals to 5i minus 2j plus k. So as you can see, this is the final solution to what? To this question. So let me have one more question for you so that you will have a try on it. So let's say vector v1 minus vector v2, if what? v1 is this and v2 is this. So you have to first take a look to this and say 3i minus 2j plus k minus 2i minus 4j minus 3k. This is the same thing as saying for I, we have 3 minus this. For j, we have minus 2 minus what? 4. Because this negative 2 and this minus and this minus. So for k is the same thing as k minus 3, which is the same thing as 1. So the I and j and k, I is the same thing as only I. 3 minus 2, 1. Minus this should now become plus minus 2 plus what? Plus 4 is the same thing as 2. So this is the same thing as 2 what? 2j, and this is something as 4k. At the end, v1 minus what? v2 is the same thing as I. Yes, I have negative 2 plus 4, which is I plus 2j plus 4k as the final what? As the final solution. So this is all I have for you for the subtraction of what? Of vectors Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day.